think they switched benches again.
Oh, they did? I forgot which one was the wobbly one.
Well, that's got the top that's cushioned, is swivels.
But this has the swivel. Let's see how this one is. I think I used this one last
The
time.
last time, yes.
Okay.
I don't, they fixed it.
Yeah, let's use this.
Yeah.
I don't want to swivel around while. Okay, sorry to this bench. Oh, the difference is that the cushion on that one, it slides around. So imagine sitting on a bobsled or something, and it just goes around. So, good evening, and it's good to be back. I had to miss last month. I'm really sorry because we have this tradition going once a month, and I was wondering what to do for the improvisation, but thanks to you, I've got it. And as I went to wash my hands, I had a little time to think about it, so I guess it's not technically an improvisation. Well, it is. I'm asked to do Stardust by Hoagie Carmichael in the style of Claude Debussy. Now, this is not, I mean, this makes sense actually, because a lot of jazz harmony in some ways comes out of the French Impressionists, Debussy and Ravel. But it's not an exact correlation, but there's definitely some of that. So let's see what happens. That's an interesting, yeah, I didn't play the whole tune, but just little snippets of it, and then try to put it in that French Debussy, Claude Debussy land. So thank you. Now I'm gonna play some other things. Here's something that's sort of the start of my next project. I think I have about a year left with this violin thing. I'm running out. And maybe that's for better or worse. For me, it's for worse because I'm obsessed with the violin. It just keeps going. But I'm starting to play pieces that are done on the violin, but are also vocal arrangements. That's my next goal, is to learn from singers. Because I've learned a lot doing this project with arrangements of violin. I'm still doing it. Learning how violinists phrase and how they play and some style. And it's something different from the piano. So singers, that's my next goal. I'm obsessed with Pavarotti and Caruso and Callas and so many others. And so this is actually a vocal, this is a lead by Mendelssohn, and it's called On Wings of Song. It was a lady, today I was playing somewhere else that she speaks German. She's from Berlin, and she was coaching me on how to say it. So, Auf Flügeln des Gesanges. I don't think I said it very well, but I said it. On Wings of Song by Mendelssohn. Now, because I don't sing, and I don't sing in German, this is Franz Liszt's arrangement for piano solo. So Mendelssohn was a child prodigy, actually even more than Mozart, if you can believe. That's what I read. That he was, Mozart had a lot of help from his dad at a young age. Doesn't mean he was not any less great than he was, don't get me wrong. But Mendelssohn was like even younger, writing all this music. And he was not a person with any arrogance about him. He was a very genuine person, a very cheerful person. Not all the classical composers were really like that. And I think his music is like that too. His music feels like you're just talking to him, or he's just talking to you. He's down to earth. Actually, here's a story about him. It was Liszt who really started performing from memory. Also, Liszt was one of the first, I think Duschek was the very first, but Liszt popularized this position of the piano facing, it used to not matter, the position of the piano. And also, it was considered very rude and arrogant to play with no music. So, but Liszt changed that. It was considered very pretentious to do that. So Mendelssohn naturally memorized everything he played. But because of that older convention, he always put sheet music in front of him, but it was not what he was actually playing. Just to have it there. Because he didn't want people to think he was being a show-off. That's Mendelssohn. And I'm thinking about Mendelssohn a lot today, because today is Rosh Hashanah. It's the Jewish New Year. And Mendelssohn was Jewish, came from a prominent Jewish family in Hamburg, but he had to convert at a certain point because of the anti-Semitism of the time. They even added the name Bartholdy, Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, to the name. And this is just very sad to think about this, because he was, his grandfather was Moses Mendelssohn, who was a philosopher and a theologian. But this was the time that he was living at. So here's Liszt's arrangement of Auf Flügeln des Gesanges, On Wings of Song by Mendelssohn. Sorry for my pronunciation.
Were you playing the melody in the left hand?
In both. This is a funny thing. And this is why this piece is so ridiculously difficult. It doesn't sound it, maybe, but it's so difficult. Here, let me play it slowly, especially in the beginning, but it's always like this. The melody is actually in the thumbs. So
Yeah.
it's between. So here's the melody. Left, right, and then later, both. And this came from a pianist named Thalberg, who was sort of a competitor with Liszt, because it used to be the melody was always up here, but here it's like it's like in there, so it's a little more orchestral sounding. It's like an instrument that's woven in.
Very rich sound.
It's a beautiful sound, and this is what Liszt. And he was making it to sound like a human voice. There's this debate. The piano is a percussion instrument. It's got hammers. No, it's a stringed instrument, and it can sound vocal. So that's the wonderful smoke and mirrors of Liszt. But yeah, that was right. And that's why this was a real headache to memorize, because I thought I would get it, and then I wouldn't. And, so, but yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, that it is. Thanks for noticing it, and I can complain a little bit too about the difficulty of it too. But yeah, it's a beautiful arrangement, and the original piece is beautiful too. Listen to a singer do it, or listen to a violinist play it. They have a violinist, cellists play it. So now I'm going to play two pieces from Schumann's Opus 10. I never like opus numbers because I can never remember them, but I remembered that one. In the last few months, I've played for you Schumann's Opus 3, Paganini Studies, where he takes Paganini caprices for solo violin, turns them into piano pieces. And in most of the cases, kind of connected to what you were saying, he really puts the original Paganini caprice in the right hand as the melody, and then accompaniment in the left hand, except the last one. But that was 1832. A few years later, I think it was a few years later, he did more arrangements of Paganini. He did 6 more, and I'm going to play 2 of those. And it's different because he said this, I think he said it in a letter or something, Schumann, that in the first set he was going for really just studies. Studies for the pianist, study for him as a composer, just to take the original Paganinis and to dress them up a little bit. But in the second set, what I'm going to play today, he takes a lot more freedom with it. He makes it more his own. And that's the difference. And it also, in that sense, I think is a little trickier. These pieces are not played very much at all of them. The Schumann Paganini studies. In fact, I was playing the other night somewhere, I won't say where or when, and as I was playing one of the quieter ones, I overheard somebody talking to their neighbor and saying, "Do you even like this?" Because I'm not so sure I do. And I thought about that, is that, these are not flashy really. They're a little bit subtle, and I understand, and they're not played very much. So maybe the Paganini originals are played a lot, but yeah. So that's about these, and of course you've heard this story a million times about who Paganini was. I mean, he was like the Jimi Hendrix or the Little Richard of that time. He was a rock star, and very controversial, very divisive because of that. But you might not catch it from these pieces. These are a little bit more, calm for Paganini. But that was his role, and for all the people who couldn't stand what he was doing, the Romantics, that generation, Mendelssohn born in 1809, Schumann 1810, Liszt 1811, all those guys, they just loved Paganini. And so many composers, this is what I'm getting to now, is that many composers have taken Paganini as a sort of launching pad for their own creativity, many of them in their early years, like Schumann here. So this first one in A flat major, same key as the last Mendelssohn I played, and it's similar. Here's the Schumann, the Paganini. It sounds like, to me, it's like flowing water or being on a Venetian gondola or something. It has that feeling. A flat major usually has that sparkly quality. It's another piece like this. Chopin's Aeolian Harp Etude, also in A flat major. Etc. I forgot the rest, but played it before. I did play it, but I mean, maybe it's the fingers remember, but it's so similar. So what, are they plagiarizing? Is that what it is? No, it's not. That's not plagiarism. They all breathed the same air. They all knew each other, and it's just that the idea of like complete individualism is not completely true, because we're all products of our time and place, and we all are more connected to the culture around us than we may think. And I think that's the case for musicians too. Schubert and Beethoven sometimes sound almost identical. Was one copying the other? Maybe Schubert was a little bit copying Beethoven, but doesn't mean that he was a plagiarizer who's not. So anyway, that's more recent in the realm of copyright law, I think. They didn't really have that back then. Let me check if this, did I even position this right? Yeah, I think it's okay. I'm no Fellini cameras, but here's the first of the Schumann Paganini, or rather Paganini Schumann studies. This one's also very hard, and it doesn't sound as hard as it is, so. And when I play that, even more so than the other ones I've played for you, Schumann's Paganini arrangements, it just feels like Schumann in the hands. It sounds like Schumann. I know it's Paganini, but it's so Schumann. And Schumann has been one of my absolute favorite composers always. I don't like to pick favorites, but Schumann is deceptive. It's hard to capture him, I find. Hard to capture his spirit. Schumann, he suffered from mental illness throughout much of his life, bipolar disorder. And it's not that he's uneven, that's not the point, but it's hard to capture. I'll tell you a story that there was, I took some lessons, some summer lessons in Paris long ago, which was, formidable, j'aime beaucoup Paris. But there was this a teacher there from the École Normale. I took some lessons with him, and I played Schumann and Chopin. I told him I love Schumann. You notice I don't play a lot of Chopin. I love Chopin very much. But I have some Chopin pieces planned for soon. But Schumann, I've always had this attraction, and he said it very well. He said that he's noticed this in performances. He said, if you play Chopin at 50 to 80%, people will like it. If you play Schumann from even 60 to 100%, it might be lukewarm. But if you play Schumann at 120, 150% with, and you really get it, it just goes to people's heart in a really special way. But he just said it's hard. Horowitz played Schumann, just incredible. I think he understood Schumann because of his own, struggles in his own life he had. But at any rate, I don't mean to, ramble on this, but it's just an interesting thing. And maybe that's what that lady was talking about. It was actually in the next piece that I'm going to play that the comment came. So this next one is a little bit creepy. This was the time that Frankenstein was written by Mary Shelley. When was it written exactly? Does anyone know? It was like 1830 or something. Probably right around the same time. Then Halloween's coming, so it's perfect for, even though it doesn't feel like it. I've played you Liszt's version of this before, and here's how Liszt treats this Paganini. This is the Liszt version. I'll play you a little bit. Here's how Schumann treats it. Completely different. It sounds like a different piece. And it's like translations of books. I had to read in high school a verse translation of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I fell asleep after, two sentences. I'm sorry, it was great, but I couldn't get into it. Many years later, I wanted to read those again. I found prose translations by some British guy in the 1800s, flowery prose. He didn't even try to make it a poem. And I loved it. It was just like reading a novel or something. But the point is that the translator or the arranger makes such a difference. I don't prefer Liszt over Schumann, or in this case, I don't have a preference at all. I just think they're different animals. So here is this creepy piece. This one, in both the Schumann and the Liszt and the original versions by Paganini, I feel like I'm standing in some kind of dark cathedral at night in Tuscany, and it's damp. I don't know why. That's this piece. It's got that feeling. You ever been, those old churches in Europe, somewhere on a mountaintop, and you go in and that's this piece to me. Can't explain it. Every time I play it, it's Thank you. And funny thing is, at the same place where I overheard the comment about that, I just found it funny. I don't mean, it's, I announced that the next piece I was going to play is actually heavier. And I think the same voice muttered, "Could it get any heavier?" So, yes, it can. And I think I've done this here once, maybe twice. This is a massive, heavy piece. This is Brahms, and it's his take on Paganini. Book 1 of his Paganini variations. I have a book 2 coming along soon. I don't mean to sound like a salesman, but I'm always telling, if I go somewhere once a month, like here, I never have enough new things, as much as I want. And I'm always end up saying, just wait till next month, I'll have the next, So, but at any rate, this is book 1 of Brahms's Paganini variations. So I was reading about this because I was curious how to put it straightforward. There is this story, maybe myth, about a love triangle between Brahms, Robert Schumann, and Clara Schumann. It's not really true. I mean, I wasn't there, so I didn't, but I don't think it's true. It's been sensationalized a lot. And the story is that the young Brahms showed up at the Schumann's home in Dusseldorf looking for advice, and the Schumanns pretty much adopted him. And he learned from Robert Schumann and from Clara Schumann. Now, they were older than Brahms was born in 1833, Schumann 1810, Clara several years later than that, but she was still about 19 years older than Brahms. Only a couple years, or a year or two later, he had a decline in his mental and physical health. He actually tried to jumped in the Rhine River, was rescued by fishermen, but the freezing, icy Rhine, but his mind was gone, and he was institutionalized. It's very sad. I've never been, but my grandmother told me she went to the asylum where he lived, and there was an upright piano there, and that's really it. And it was just so lonely. It was so sad. Schumann was such a genius and such a troubled soul. Now, Brahms was there the whole time, and this is where the sensationalized thing that, yes, Brahms and Clara formed a very deep connection. It was a musical collaboration. Clara was a great composer and pianist, and she advised Brahms and gave throughout their lives. They would write letters, and to each other musically, giving musical advice. Mainly Clara to Brahms, and I think it was a very strong platonic bond. At least that's what I was reading. Now, maybe Brahms had some unrequited love for her, and sometimes I hear something of that nature. It may not be Clara, I don't know, but something of that nature in his music, especially in the quiet moments of this piece. And there's not many quiet moments, but you'll feel something. There's this thing. So that's the story. There was a movie, I think Katharine Hepburn or somebody was in the late 40s. There was a movie about this. She was Clara, and someone played Brahms, and anyway, I'm not the gossip column, so not to go further into this, but Brahms was such a paradox. He was a paradox. He was from Hamburg like Mendelssohn, but the culture of Hamburg is, you don't wear your heart on your sleeve, really. So I was talking to a lady, her husband's from Hamburg, and she went to a family reunion outside the city. By the way, it's cold, gray, rainy, it's near the North Sea, and there were two sisters at this reunion that hadn't seen each other for years, I think because one had ended up in East Germany before the wall went up. And so, do you know how they reunited? You think they laughed and cried and hugged and kissed? Not at all. They just, the two sisters went up to each other, and they just did this. And then they walked away. That's it. And it's not that the emotion is not there. It's here. You heard the expression that if you make a friend from the north, I mean like, not New Jersey north, I'm talking like Norway or North, they're your friend for life. There's just something in the culture, you don't wear your heart on your sleeve, but it's all here. And I think Brahms is like that. I mean, his music's like that. And he was like that. He was very serious, He was very, like, modeling himself after Beethoven in many ways. But at the same time, when he lived in Vienna, he made all these Hungarian gypsy musician friends. Why would he write the Hungarian dances? It's a lot of fun. So he had a fun side. So he was a paradox. Even when you think of Brahms, what do you imagine in your mind? Just the image of him. You've probably seen pictures of him, right? What's your image of him?
A big white wig.
Yes, the beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was not really small. He was a bigger guy. In fact, I was driving through South Carolina with my family, and I saw a guy on a Harley Davidson who looked like him. And I almost went up to him and said, I wanted to talk to him because he looked like Brahms. And my wife stopped me. She said, "You might not get the reaction you're looking for." But I was reading about this morning. And that's how he looked in his later life. He couldn't grow a beard until he was in his 40s. Sometime look up young Brahms online. That's when he met Clara and Robert Schumann. He was this thin guy with blonde hair, blue eyes, just very thin. He looked like a boy at the age of 20. So it's just interesting, the paradox of him. Even physically, he was so different, and young and old. He had this very serious side, this Hamburg, but he also had a playful side. He liked to eat chicken paprika and have with Johann Strauss Jr. in Vienna. And their music's so different. They played pranks on each other. Strauss left a copy of the Blue Danube on his coffee table, Brahms's, as a joke, because he knew that their music was so different. And Brahms solemnly picked it up and wrote on it, unfortunately not composed by Brahms. I love that story. So anyway, here's the piece. Brahms envisioned this to be finger exercises. I call them sadistic finger exercises. But he liked how they sounded and turned them into these variations. And it's variations on the 24th Caprice by Paganini. What you heard from Schumann, they're not, it's from numbers 1 through 23. But this is the 24th. That's the 24th. Is there one note here that's a little bit, yeah, it's okay, but I think this piano it's sounding nice tonight, so. Here it is. Good luck to you, good luck to me. Crazy piece.
Aggressive is an understatement.
Yeah, it's very, and it's just very, 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 very tricky. And I think, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but like, I don't know if it's possible to even hit all the right notes. I mean, I sometimes, because it's just so, I mean,
You missed one.
it's all this, it's just wild. So I want to play an excerpt of Rachmaninoff's Paganini Rhapsody. I'm working on the whole thing, but this is the 18th variation, and it's based on the same Paganini, but this is the 1930s he wrote it in. And the 18th variation, I don't think I've done it here yet. If you take that and you flip it upside down, you get this. It's a new melody. Everyone knows that melody. And composers do this. Bach would do it. Schoenberg, you turn the thing upside down, you play it backwards, you get something new from it. And Rachmaninoff wrote this at his summer home on Lake Lucerne, Switzerland. Not bad. He was living in the US, he had a summer home, and so he was doing very well for himself performing. But he was heartbroken because he left his native Russia in 1917 after the revolution, never went back. And this is kind of like my mother, but it's much later. My mother left in 1980, never gone back to Russia, doesn't want to, especially now, But this Russian nostalgia, it's not just Rachmaninoff, it's not just my mom, look at Russian literature. It's a famous thing. And Rachmaninoff didn't write very much music in the 20s. He did arrangements of things and he edited some of his older pieces, but he had trouble. But in the 30s, it came back. His creative juices were back, but the style changed. It was different. It's as great, but it's just different. He was influenced by, leaving his country, but he was influenced by America and by the West. And his music became a little drier, a little sharper. It wasn't the same, I don't know that, I forgot that I played it. It changed, but this variation is like a throwback to his older style. And to me, it's like a dream of returning home. It's like in his sleep, he's returning back home. And I think of it this way. Even if you are not an exile from a country like Russia or Sudan or somewhere, if you're not an exile, we all have the same experience because you can't go home again. There's that novel by Thomas Wolfe, North Carolina writer. You can't go home again because home is as much a time as it is a place. I went to visit where I grew up, the street I grew up on, and it brought back all these memories, but it's all different. It's not home anymore. So I think that's what Rachmaninoff, what his music, a lot of it is all about. I think that's what this piece is. So there's this movie, I haven't seen it yet, it's called Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. It uses that. And of course, a piece about being lost in time, they would choose Rachmaninoff for it. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Here it is. was sad because we get to that big moment there, right there.
Yeah.
It's a little out of tune. So I tried to cover it up by, but anyway, it's okay. It's the weather. It's fall. Last week was like fall, and then now it's summer. You know, North Carolina. How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh! Can I do one more classical piece? I mean, if you need to leave, it's okay. I won't. You know, I understand. I want to do one more to close on a more cheerful note. A lot of what I played was a little bit on the depressing side today. So this is Zigeunerweis, Gypsy Airs by Sarasate, Spanish composer. And it's arranged by the Romanian-French composer, pianist, and violinist George Enescu. He did it all. Overlooked genius, or Enesco in French. He was George Enesco, but Romanian's Enescu. So this is a typical gypsy form because it starts very slow with no rhythm and with the sound of the cymbalum, which is something, the cymbalum actually sounds like that, but on the piano, it has that kind of, sound to it. Then you have a couple moderately slow dances like this. It's very gypsy, and then you have this one. It has to be Jascha Heifetz playing it. He played this unbelievable. And then at the end, this lively, fast dance to close it all. And that's why I like to end with this, because it's fun. Here we go. with a little gospel, so I'll be very quick today. Maybe I'll do something upbeat. I don't know if I could even handle it. Now maybe I could do it. This is How I Got Over, which is a spiritual. Mahalia Jackson sang it at the March on Washington in 1963. So sounds a bit like blues, but it's gospel. So, and I'll make it quick because it's getting late.
Take it down.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, and I think we all got our cardio in, so thank you. At least with drums. Thank you very much, as always, and I'll see you next time. Best to Larkin on this. Larkin. Thank you so much.